Hello everyone, welcome to the third day of our landscape. So let's start with the reference image again. So these are the three areas which are very similar. So how we go about this? Of course, from light to dark we will move, and we see that there are lights being shown over here. Means these three are the most glowing parts in this reference image. Even though this is the foreground, in this foreground itself we have this area which is the central highlight of the painting of our paintings. So I'll tell you how to do one of these areas, which is the exact similar way in which you will be doing the other two also. I have taken a round pointed brush, synthetic. You can wet down the entire area. Once you have done that, you can simply remove with your dry brush just one point in the center, because if you look at your reference image, you will see that the center has some lighter areas. I'll also remove little bit of water from this central area. I'm going from the outer edges of the square, then moving towards the inside. Once I'm done with this yellow, what I will do is I'll take some orange or cadmium red, which is what I have here. I do not have any orange color. I'll place it on the boundary of the square. The color will spread little bit, which is what we require. This is a realistic painting, and when I do that, I try to go, try to do a very small part. And when doing that very small part, I have to be very conscious as to what values I am using, how should I, how well I am observing the reference image, because what I can see is what I can paint. If your paint is spreading too much, you can blot it out. Now after this, I will take my nail gouache and I'll place it inside. This area is still wet, so what I can do is I can place in a few different colors as well. It is not completely wet, but it is damp. On the top section of this area, you will see that it is even darker on the top and the sides. If you look at your reference image carefully, so I'm using my pink over here. You can even use little bit of violet, and I'll come on to the outer edges of the square. Do this. I'm just putting in some water with a thin brush, size 2, round synthetic. We'll try to repeat the same process here. Before doing that, let's get little bit of color out from the center to our dry brush. Now we put in the yellows in a circular manner. Keep looking at your image. After that, I'll use some cadmium red and drop in some cadmium red. After cadmium red, you can go with beryllium maroon or pink in the darker areas. These corners, the upper corners are very dark. And come down to the lower area, which is relatively less dark. Now clean your brush and wipe it on your tissue and create a striking line like this. Create a diagonal line through this center as though it is a radius. I am creating 3 such lines. And after doing that, I'm using my pink to come over these areas, but I'm trying to avoid the lines which I have created. I'm not going over those lines. If your paper is wet, you will be able to. If your paper is damp, you will be able to do this section very nicely, because then you can place in your colors easily. And dropping one small paper, cerulean maroon, on the upper corners. In this area, I'm trying to merge the above little bit. This is the merging which I'm allowing it to happen through the brush. I'm placing in a very pale layer of my cadmium red. If there is little bit of merging, it's okay, but do not allow a lot of merging to happen, because cadmium red is a darker value than your yellow, so it can, completely cover up that yellow. That you have to keep in mind, and use a damp paper. Only if you are using a damp paper, you can allow for better control of your colors. If you do not want it to run and mix into each other. After this, I'll use some of my pinks. Why we are doing this on a damp paper is because we don't want lot of streaks in this region, because in the reference image we see that there are no streaking lines. It is a blend, and it is a mix of various different values. Value means how dark a color is or how light a color is. And even if you get a streak somewhere, when you layer it, if you are using a good quality 100% cotton paper, then you will be able to remove that streaking through dry brushing at a later stage. Here we need to do the dry brushing, the dome area. Now I will be using some Peruvian maroon. And do not go all throughout with the Peruvian maroon. We just want it to place near the where we see the darker colors in our reference image. Okay, so we have put in a layer of colors over here. What I see is that we can do this area also, but keep in mind that we do not, when we are wetting down this paper, we do not touch that area which we have just painted. It is best to avoid painting this area, but if you can maintain a distance, a gap between painting this area and just the previous one, you can well do that as well. Here I'm just putting in some colors, that is I'm wetting it down and I'm using a thin consistency, watery like consistency, and putting in my colors. If you forgot to wet any area, either you use a tissue paper and remove that area, or if you can blend it with your damp brush like this. For this darker area, you can take any color that you have. It is quite a dark area and you can tilt your painting in any way, whichever way you feel comfortable, and create this line. When going towards the top, ensure that you don't get inside the pillars, that the color doesn't get inside the pillars. I'm using pink and petalline maroon. I'll also use some violet. I've got Windsor violet with me. I'm not using brown over here because sometimes I feel that brown makes it sometimes looks dull on the paper. It is purely an individual choice. You can also use blue. The pillars are not extremely straight. If you expand your image on a phone or on canva.com, you will see that the pillars are not completely straight because this is the shadow area. I'm using blue, violet, any of the dark colors which I have. And then move on to the other side, isn't it? Creation stage, all the parts will not look very beautiful at a time. So I will help you rectify whatever it is that we can rectify. And what you can do if you have a lot many scratchy looking areas is either you do dry brushing like this. You have to take the similar values which are in this area and do this dry brushing. Very small strokes in a rapid manner. This requires a lot of patience. In one small area, you have to keep moving your brush rapidly, rapidly like this. Then you come in with the changed value, and then with your changed value, that is how dark or how light this area is, I will change my value of the color which I am using, and then I'll place in that color and do my dry brushing. Once we do the entire thing, it will look smoothened out. If you don't want to start with dry brushing, you can put in a light glaze of a thin glaze of water over your dome, and it will look much better when it dries out if it is looking scratchy, because some people wrote in the chat. Okay, so we are done with today's painting. I hope to see you all again tomorrow.